The current brouhaha may be likened to a power play between the arms of government, and it has the potential to undermine our democracy and the authority of parliament. Its outcomes could subvert Ghana's constitutional order and the democratic system. Ghanaians have toiled, sacrificed their lives, and shed blood to establish for decades. Ladies and gentlemen, recent acts of the judiciary and executive, and I see them as interference in the workings of parliament, pose a direct challenge to the essence, jurisdiction, authority, powers, and functioning of the esteemed institution of parliament, which is the repository of the sovereign will of the people of Ghana. It is increasingly becoming clear the judiciary and the executive are seemingly colluding to weaken parliament. The decision of the Ghanaian voters in the 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections is clear and loud to all discerning people. The decision is obviously a preference for a consensual and collaborative governance to a winner-take-all government. The majoritarian system of parliament, where the minority have a say, but the majority have its way, was rejected by the voters. They rather opted for inclusivity, collaboration, consensus building, leaving nobody behind. The equal representation of the two major parties in Ghana, resulting in the composition of a hung parliament to the voters, is the better way forward for our dear nation.
That's the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, raising concern about what he says is a coordinated effort by the executive and judiciary to undermine and weaken Parliament, which will potentially undermine democracy and subvert constitutional order in the country. In a no-holds-barred press conference this afternoon to speak about happenings for the first time on the Supreme Court's ruling, staying his directive that declared 4 seats for Mena, Suhum, Agona Western and Memphis Central vacant following the decision by their respective members of parliament to ditch their parties they represent in parliament and contest on the 2024 parliamentary candidates as independent ones. Alban Bagbin accused the judiciary and executive of overstepping their bounds, describing it as a power play.
I swore an oath to uphold, preserve, protect and defend the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, and that I will do right to all manner of persons in accordance with the Constitution and the laws and conventions of Parliament without fear or favor, affection or ill will. I concluded the swearing of the oath with a call on God to help me. I'm very confident and have faith in God to see me through these dark days of Ghana and our young democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no constitutional crisis in this country. I repeat, there is no constitutional crisis in this country. The Parliament of Ghana is alive and working. Let nobody mislead, misinform, or disinform you and the country. The democratic system we adopted and enacted as captured in the Constitution 1992 and fleshed out in various laws, processes, procedures, and practices is what has been triggered, and it is working. Let us allow it to work. Democracy is about the rule of law. Let the law work. There is no constitutional crisis in the country. Beloved Ghanaians, I have served Parliament and the people of Ghana continuously for over 32 years as a politician and over 42 years as a public servant. I cherish the role Parliament plays in our democracy, and my mission is to leave Parliament a stronger institution than I met it. Parliament is alive and working. It has not been dissolved, prorogued, prohibited, suspended, or terminated. The plenary sitting and meetings of Parliament were adjourned indefinitely due to lack of quorum to take decision created by a walkout staged by the MPP members who were available as a result of a disagreement. The cause of the disagreement, which led to a disorder, had to be resolved with time and engagement of many more leaders than those in Parliament. The adjournment was done by the lawful authority, the Speaker of Parliament. Let us stop pressing the panic buttons and fear-mongering and allow the system to work. Anger and indecent language rather inflames the situation. There can be no democracy without patience, tolerance, discipline, collaboration, the love for one another, and consensus building.
Speaker of Parliament, Right Honourable Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, Havila Kekeli, Parliamentary Affairs reporter, was at that press conference in Parliament this afternoon. He joins us on the line. Havila, quite interesting things that happened. Speaker did also not spare the Attorney General and the Supreme Court. He calls it doubling in political matters. What more did he say?
Yeah, according to the right of Mr. Bagbin, the Supreme Court has been proved very inconsistent with their dealings with Parliament. He mentioned the issue of the anti-LGBT bill.
Havila, before you continue, can you please speak up for me because your mouth is muffled, actually. I can hardly hear you.
So the Right Honourable Speaker raised serious concerns about the inconsistency of the Supreme Court. He particularly mentioned the anti-LGBT bill, which has been before the Supreme Court for almost a year now, but no decision has been made yet. Yet, when this very issue of the vacancies were before them, according to the Speaker, he was surprised at the speed with which they are handling this very issue, and he's therefore calling on them to be consistent with their dealings with Parliament. He also tried the Attorney General over some comments he made at the Supreme Court, and according to the Right Honourable Speaker, he would tell his mind when he listens.
So again, the question many wanted the Speaker to address is who is majority, who sits where, as the House is reconvening tomorrow. Did the Speaker answer that?
In fact, the Speaker was very technical about that question, and according to him, whoever or who becomes majority or minority is not his work. Where they sit even in Parliament is not his work. The standing orders of the day will determine who occupies the majority position or the minority position, and it appears that these decisions will be made tomorrow. The Speaker is technically not giving out these answers yet. Because during his statement, he kept referring to both sides of the House as NDP members of Parliament and NPP members of Parliament. And when the person was put before him, he was so technically avoided in specific on telling either side the majority or the minority.
Parliament weakens itself when its members keep running to our courts to settle or seek favorable determinations of not just legal matters, but essentially political and governance questions. It is my strong belief the matter before the Supreme Court can be settled within Parliament through matured deliberations and compromises. Please, make no mistake, not all the strong men President Obama warned us about come in military uniforms. Some come dressed in suits. I hope in my lifetime, Ghana shall have a parliament and a speaker who are truly independent from Jubilee or Flagstaff House or any headquarters in the conduct of parliamentary business. Please, it's not part of the duties of a speaker to decide where an MP should sit in Parliament. It's not my duty. That determination in Ghana's situation, in various parliaments, these things we are talking about, majority side, minority side, don't exist any longer. That's why in my ruling I use the term old school. The British model, government opposition, benches, and a carpet in between them. And so when you are shifting your political lineage, you have to cross that carpet to the other side. And that is why you have the term carpet crossing. Our parliament is not arranged in the form of government and opposition. And Ghana don't like the term opposition. So we decided to adopt the terms from the United States of America, majority and minority. So you can even sit anywhere. But the numbers determine who is majority and who is minority. But in our parliament, the practice is for those who constitute majority to sit at the right side of the speaker, and those who constitute minority to sit at the left side of the speaker. That is because after independence in 1957, we adopted the Westminster system.
So that's the Speaker of Parliament, Bagbin. Havila, immediately after, the NDC caucus addressed the parliamentary press corps. What is their stance or position on the Speaker's press conference, and what do they intend to do tomorrow as the House is coming back?
Yeah, according to the majority Chief Kwame Abuja, the NDC side still maintains their majority position, and that tomorrow, the result, they will be occupying the majority position side of the chamber. But then we have assured the minority, which is the NPP side of the House, their commitment to support government business, and they call on them to participate accordingly.
Tomorrow, as a result of the directive of Mr. Speaker, in line with the Constitution and standing orders, the majority NDC shall attend upon the House at appropriate time as directed by Mr. Speaker. We shall take our rightful place in the chamber as to where we sit and wait for whatever businesses that may come in front of us. Our advice to our colleagues in the minority NPP is to try and prioritize business that is in the interest of the people of this country, and they shall find favor and cooperation with us in trying to deal with those businesses. We can assure them that as long as the business is in the interest of improving the lot of Ghanaians, they can count on the majority NDC caucus in Parliament to support those initiatives to pass those things that would help the people of this country.
That's the Member of Parliament for Addo and also Chief Whip on the NDC caucus. He insists they are the majority. Kwame Agbodza governs, addressing the parliamentary press corps a while ago. Let's stay on the line and speak to Sami Obeng, Executive Director of Parliamentary Network Africa. Mr. Obeng, thank you very much for your time tonight on 505. I'm sure you listened to the Speaker. Are you clear about the current position of happenings in Parliament and then the Supreme Court as to who is majority and who is not majority? Has the Speaker gone back on his word, declaring those 4 seat vacants from what you listened to today?
Did I listen to the Speaker? Yes, I did. Obviously, I was going to take full interest in what happened. Made my notes copiously. Did I think that the Speaker's press conference settled the matters? No, I don't.
Okay.
I think that the Speaker himself, at the point, told us some of the questions that the journalist asked that he did not have answers to. As to how tomorrow is going to turn out, he does not have answers to. He shied away from the questioning around who's majority, who's minority, who sits where, by responding to the fact that it's not within the Speaker's job description, so to speak, to define who is majority and who is minority, or it's where, in the Chamber of Parliament. But I think there were there were a couple of big positives, to the speaker's presser, and for me, those are the areas I want to focus.
What are the positives?
One is his presser started on the note of wanting to calm nerves, wanting to unite and rally us as a people around the need for us not to allow what's going on to be blown out of proportion and to be seen as some chaos that is beyond us, and to lead into all manner of negative things. I think that message was sent out very well, and if we would focus on that aspect of the message, it could lead to calming tempers and making Ghanaians know that, look, we have bigger issues to deal with as a country, and we should not allow some of these things to derail us. He also took advantage of the opportunity to clarify some parliamentary practice and procedures issues. I have always held big fights with Parliament as someone who works at Parliamentary Network Africa, an institution that engages Parliament a lot. I've always said that sometimes we leave the conversation around parliamentary practice procedures to hot-headed partisan politicians who sometimes do not even understand the issues and always color it with their party colors. But it comes to a time where we have to allow speakers, but also technocrats in Parliament, to speak to some of these things from a non-aligned, non-partisan instance. And I think that for many of the practice and procedures issues that Mr. Speaker pointed out to today, he pointed them from the point of someone who has had the experience of staying in Parliament for so many years, understands the issues, and tries to offer some explanations to the public. There was also the issue about taking advantage of the platform to kind of send some compelling, convincing messages to the judiciary on why they must hold fidelity to the Constitution and ensure that they are ruling eventually on, I think, November 11th would be one that puts things in perspective, reminding them that posterity will judge. And finally, another positive being that, usually these debates, these conversations takes place in the Chamber of Parliament, which is among the MPs. You guys as media folks, members of the public do not get to engage by asking questions and what have you, but opening up in a presser arrangement and answering questions, addressing the media specifically. And we saw the interest on some of the platforms. There were thousands of people who were following and what have you. Shows that people want more of these, and for us as an organization that promotes open Parliament, these are some of the things that we encourage. So those were the positives. But yes, there were some other angles that would still live in controversy beyond today.
And one of it is the fact that the Speaker was very clear to where the judiciary should leave their work, and where some members of Parliament, he says, when they disagree on the floor, will be quick to run to the judiciary, and the disrespect for Parliament is because of some members of Parliament just running to the judiciary to intervene, the judiciary intervening in political matters instead of maybe judicial matters and all that, and the work of Parliament. He goes on to say that the judiciary arms and where the nose of Parliament begins. But the elephant in the room was not addressed. That's the 4 vacant seats that has brought us here. This whole brouhaha and hullabaloo. The Speaker failed to say whether his decision is still standing, whether the Supreme Court's decision is going to the ruling about staying his decision to declare the 4 seats vacant. But he went on to, as it were, tell the judiciary that it should be consistent. For some people, they can be without MPs for 4 years. For some people, they could be without MPs for 3 months, and even the Constitution talks about it. For this elephant, how are we addressing this? Or we have to wait until the 11th of November, which we are not even too sure whether the Supreme Court is going to give its final ruling on that matter.
So if the man who set up the room and invited us into the room did not deal with the elephants, whom am I?
Maybe from the copious notes that you made, you could get an answer for us.
Yeah, but I mean, that was on the lighter note, just to point to the fact that many of the responses would hold sway if they came from Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, of course, and smartly, some of those were like we say in our local parlance, swerved, by Mr. Speaker. That leaves us also sitting on tenterhooks on what tomorrow could possibly look like. It is my hope and prayer that the confidence that the Speaker had in the Parliament by stating that he thought that the current issues with Parliament could have been settled through mature deliberations and compromises in Parliament would play out really, because we've not really seen so many of these matured compromises since 2021, in Parliament, and hopefully tomorrow we can see one that can calm our nerves down. I do not know about that. However, on the issues around the Speaker trying to protect the turf of the legislative arm, any Speaker, and more to Speaker Bagbin, who have spent, almost all his adult life in the legislative arm of government, will certainly protect that space and turf. For those of us who work within the legislative space as CSOs that specialize in the area, it's one of the areas that we advocate for. Strong legislatures who are not seen as subservient to the executive branch, a co-equal branch of government, at par with the other branches and what have you. And so those advocacies are very good. Although, yes, you are right. Mr. Speaker made some very wild pronouncements, which certainly would occupy the headlines, in the coming days, including declaring the judiciary and the executive as seemingly colluding to weaken the institution of Parliament, interfering in the work of Parliament, and all of that. But those are opinions to express, and he's entitled to them, and those leaves the conversation widely open. But I think that we need to find political solutions to the political problems that our country faces, and find legal solutions to the legal problems that our country faces. Okay.
Now, again, tomorrow, Speaker says is open to matured compromises and deliberations. And he went on to say that up till now, nobody from the NPP or the government side or those that are affected by this have reached him. They've not made any overtures. He talked about the former majority leader speaking to the media and all that. Who is supposed to lead this kind of matured conversation, deliberations or compromises for Parliament to go ahead to sit tomorrow? Because with the NDC insisting they are majority, they'll go and sit there. The MPP might also stay the same walkouts. Then the recall would have amounted to zero.
The question of who, for me, starts with Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker's place in this is his show of willingness and fatherliness and open arms to accommodate these things. Do I think that the Speaker has shown these? I think so. By adjourning the House Synod and the explanation he gave today, which was my own understanding also of why he adjourned the House Synod, of allowing cool heads to prevail, allowing time for people to deliberate on these matters, meet and have that mature deliberation and compromises, was a signaling to where he wanted to take this. And remember that I've always maintained that if a House is adjourned Synod, which means that without a definite date of resumption, it could mean that it will come back in a day or two, in a week. So it's not a perpetual state of affairs, depending on how things go. So I think the Speaker has signaled that he met with the Council of State, the statement that was released by Parliament after that particular meeting. I've also signaled the willingness to find an amicable solution to this. So his side, by way of the rule, is more towards the signaling. But those who, in my opinion, need to show the way and lead and be deliberate about ensuring that this amicable solution happens should be the government side of Parliament. Because you see, they lead government business in Parliament. And it is government business that is suffering or will get to suffer. And when government business suffers or continues to be in limbo, who does it affect? It affects us. And what will we do when we get consistently affected by government business being affected in Parliament, we would show our bloody teeth to the government. And so government has a responsibility to reach out. And that is why I was particularly surprised that he declared in his press statement that beyond Honorable Oseche Metabosu, who reached out, and even in that, he was seeking to find clarifications on some of the issues. None of the members of the front bench of the NPP have reached out and all of that. I think that that leaves me in a very nervous situation, wondering how tomorrow is going to go. Hopefully, they have been able to reach out to their peers on the minority side, because they also have a responsibility that once their reaching out is done, they must respond to it in the national interest, and not also seeing that they have partisan political points to score, for which reason they would want to put sand in the gallery of the entire state just because they want to ascend to the throne of the country. So all of these players have a role to play, or have roles to play. And it's my expectation that they have played their roles as at now, to allow us not have the challenges of tomorrow, because it will be completely problematic if tomorrow ends up to be an emergency recall that ends in chaos, and for which reason does not yield much result. It would only show leaders who simply do not care about whether Ghana stays intact or not.
Maybe chaotic it might not be, but again, we might go back to what happened. Let's see what the House will do tomorrow. Tomorrow is not too far from us. Let's see.